Have you ever stopped to think about how a conflict happening thousands of miles away could end up affecting your personal finances? Curious. It's a worrying idea, but it's something worth paying attention to. The growing tension between the United States and Iran isn't just another headline, it's a serious warning sign for the global economy. If this situation were to escalate into a full-scale war, the impact would ripple across the world, reaching everything from fuel prices to financial markets. Let's begin with the most immediate and visible effect: oil. A large share of the world's oil supply moves through a narrow passage known as the Strait of Hormuz, located near Iran. Concerned, in the event of war, this critical route could be disrupted or even completely shut down. Picture nearly one-fifth of the world's daily oil supply suddenly being cut off. The consequences would be dramatic. Oil prices wouldn't just rise slightly, they could surge to $150 or even $200 per barrel, according to some analysts. For everyday people, that translates into significantly higher costs at the gas station. And it doesn't end there. When fuel becomes more expensive, it pushes up the cost of transporting goods, manufacturing products, and even basic items at your local grocery store. Inflation would rise sharply, putting pressure on household budgets worldwide. Now consider the financial markets. Uncertainty is something markets strongly react to, and war represents the highest level of uncertainty. As soon as the threat of conflict becomes real, investors tend to panic. They start pulling money out of higher-risk investments like stocks and move it into safer options such as gold or government bonds. This kind of behavior could spark a major stock market downturn, erasing trillions of dollars in value. Retirement funds, savings accounts, and investment portfolios could all suffer significant losses. We've already seen smaller examples of this volatility during past periods of tension. A full-scale conflict would amplify that effect on a much larger and more damaging level. The instability could spread quickly, potentially triggering a global recession. Companies might delay investments, hiring could slow or stop entirely, and job losses could become widespread. Beyond oil and financial markets, global trade would also take a serious hit. Shipping routes would need to be adjusted, making them longer, slower, and more expensive. At the same time, insurance costs for ships operating near the conflict zone would increase sharply. These factors would create major disruptions in global supply chains. If you remember the supply chain problems from a few years ago, this situation could be far worse. The movement of goods, ranging from electronics to food, would slow down significantly, leading to shortages and higher prices, especially in countries that rely heavily on imports. The overall economic impact would be severe, and alongside the financial consequences, there would also be a significant human toll. Millions of people in the affected region could be forced to leave their homes, leading to a large-scale refugee crisis. Neighboring countries and international aid organizations would face immense pressure trying to manage the situation. The effects wouldn't stay confined to one area, they would spread globally. Emerging economies that depend on stable oil prices and consistent trade would be particularly vulnerable. Meanwhile, nations in Europe and Asia that rely heavily on Middle Eastern oil could face serious energy shortages. Even the United States, despite being a major oil producer, wouldn't escape the fallout. The financial burden of engaging in a war is enormous, potentially adding trillions of dollars to the national debt. That cost has to be covered somehow, whether through higher taxes or reduced funding for essential services in the future. It creates a cycle where the economic strain affects everyone and ultimately no one benefits. So what does all of this mean? It highlights that peace and diplomacy are not just idealistic goals. They are essential for economic stability. The possibility of a conflict between the United States and Iran poses a serious threat to global prosperity. It serves as a powerful reminder of how interconnected the world has become and how a crisis in one region can quickly create economic disruption everywhere. The hope is that tensions are resolved through dialogue, because the financial and human cost of war is something the world simply cannot afford.